Hello there, I'm Chris Heilmann, and I was asked by Honeypot to answer a few questions about my career and what I'm doing and how I'm learning new things and so on and so forth. Normally this would be an interview with a real person asking me things, but with quarantine and corona, all I have right now is sitting at home here in my castle in North Berlin, answering questions to you to a camera. But it's something we all have to get used to, so it's kind of good to do that kind of interview that way as well. I think the biggest thing here is to be a social person, and these soft skills that come with technology or come with working in a company are the things that kind of make your career. You can be as technically gifted as you want. You can be the amazing developer, but in essence you have to work with people, and people are dependent on you and other people want to learn things from you. So learning how to be a good player in a team, learning how to actually navigate the politics of a company is something that is very important. And I think networking is the biggest part there. Whenever I started a new company, I got to know the people that run these companies. And most of the time that's not the CEO or the CTO, but it's actually their PMs and these people that work for them, their PAs, the people that do the connection in the company. So offering in your company to the HR department to give presentations, to learn about the company itself was something that helped me a lot in my advancement in different companies and not necessarily only my technical acumen. I think it's important that we understand that we have a certain amount of years as a technical perfectionist, as somebody who just like, I'm going to go away and code something amazing and come back later on. Sooner or later, you find that you also get tired of that and you want to find a way how to get older in a company and how to actually go higher up the ladder in the hierarchy. And that's not necessarily just a technical position, but it's something and somebody that people want to work with. And that's a very important part of our careers. What strengths are most important for a developer? I think it's interest, and it's also being dedicated to finding a good solution. And that's not necessarily a clever solution. I find there's a lot of developers that try to actually impress other developers with finding the cleverest solution, the shortest, the least amount of effort, the one that scales to 1 million users and is like very complex because of it, and then the millions of users never come. I think the interesting part about being a good developer is actually write the code that's needed at this time, not necessarily the perfect code, and also when to let go and when to not try to actually write the code that everybody is impressed with, but just the code that works at that moment. So I think the most important part of a developer is like being able to fit into a situation and being able to use a different stack even if you cannot change it. There's a lot of junior developers that go into a company and look at something that's been running for decades and hating it on the first moment and saying like, I can do that better, that cool new technology is a thing to have. Often it's a good thing to lean back and actually talk to the people in the company that have been there for years and decades, that actually make you understand why the system is the way it is right now. Nobody wants to build a bad product, but bad products happen over time with lots of chefs in the kitchen, lots of changes, lots of things happening. So I think it's important that you as a developer also sit back and listen and see why something is there. And often it's very easy to criticize things because you know how to do it better, but you haven't been there when the thing was built in the first place. So having a bit of humbleness about it is a very important part for a developer as well. And also, I think the biggest part of my career was that I was a developer that also could explain very complex things in very human terms to people who are not developers. And that's something that is a skill that makes sense to hone over time because you will need that later on in your career as well. I think it's very important. It's very important to take time off, and it's also to stop working and not be the person anymore that's available all the time. Also, I hate that whole side hustle thing where people go into a company, get a contract, get a salary, say like they're working for a company, but then they go home and do their own little extra startup because the working for that company is not cool enough. There's a lot of people out there looking for jobs. There's a lot of people out there that would be very happy with that one job as well. And if you really want to do the side hustle thing, if you really want to be the entrepreneur, then be that entrepreneur and take the plunge and be that person. But I really, the older I get, the more I realize it's actually good for your health to turn off as well and to not be at work all the time and also be online all the time and responding to things all the time. You will hear a lot of people that say like you're missing out a lot of opportunities if you're not available all the time. But I think if those opportunities mean that you have to burn yourself out, then they're probably not the good opportunities you want to work out. I think the biggest mistake that I've been doing, and a lot of junior developers or developers in their career are doing, is that I stayed at a lot of projects and companies for far too long. I didn't like it anymore. I wasn't happy there, and it showed in my interaction with people. I was arrogant in meetings. I was very much always grumpy about we should be doing things. But I always had that feeling like I worked here for 4 years. The project is horrible. The environment is not good. The architecture is not good. I need another month to fix it. In the next month it's going to happen. In the next month it's going to happen. And it never kind of does, because if you're already in that grumpy mode, if you're already unhappy with what you're working with, you're not going to find a solution either. You're just going to be horrible to other people around you and to the code that you're working with. So I think it's often the time to be like honest with yourself as a developer and say like, my stint here is done. This company doesn't need my change ideas any longer. It's not set up the way I want it to be, and maybe there's a good opportunity to change somewhere else. Or if you really ticked off, maybe do something on your own. And I think I've done that a few times, that I stayed too long and thought it was like, okay, it's a good paycheck, I'm not worried about it anymore. But it didn't help that company. It didn't help me actually become better in that company. And I sometimes also burned a few bridges that way by just being there, always the person saying like, we should be doing differently, we should be doing better. And there's many things that many factors in doing better. So it's sometimes very arrogant for us to just look at it from a technical perspective and say like, I could change that in like 10 lines of code if I just had the time and the power. You know what? If you want that power, ask for that power. And if that company doesn't give you that power, then probably you should be going somewhere else. There's a few of them. I really enjoyed writing my first book, mostly because it made my parents understand what I'm doing, because they had no idea what computers are or what I'm doing. But giving them a book in their hand basically means they don't ask me every week anymore if I'm doing well or if I got a real job or not. I also very much enjoyed doing the opening keynote at the Internet Days in Sweden, where it's like huge audience and a very old and very satisfactory company running this event. And I did the opening keynote, and the closing keynote was the WikiLeaks person, and he quoted my talk, so he listened to us as well. So I was just like, this is wonderful. But actually more excited I'm about the impact that I had on other people. Seeing people that I worked with, seeing engineers that worked for me when I was a lead engineer, seeing them be successful later on, some of them starting their own companies, being CTOs and being CEOs of companies that actually make a lot more money than I have right now, is exciting to me. Like seeing that I inspired people, that I managed to remove barriers for them to actually find their own passion, was a wonderful thing to have. And I think that's something that makes you grow more than all the accomplishments that you do yourself.
Thousands of developers find jobs across Europe using Honeypot. If you're up for a new challenge in one of these European cities, sign up at honeypot.io. If you want to see more tech documentaries, then subscribe so you don't miss the next one.